We are back, and we're going to be going over a topic that I feel like I didn't give nearly enough coverage in my last recap of the Browns game against the Chargers, and that is the complete disarray that the Browns defense is in right now, especially in regards to stopping the run. The Chargers came in as one of, if not the worst rushing attacks in the NFL, and they hung over 230 yards on the Browns defense with all their players back. So, you had the Falcons game where, yes, you did have some practice squad guys come in and run for whoever. No, it might have been more than 200 again in back-to-back weeks, but at least in the Falcons game, you could argue that 3 of your 4 starting defensive linemen were out, including Clowney and Garrett, which the defensive tackles on this team, doesn't matter who's starting, it seems like. We'll get to them later. But now in the game against the Chargers, all 3 of those names were back. They were, they still were unable to stop the run from the Chargers, who were one of, if not the worst rushing attacks in the league. And so Andrew Berry's watching the same games that we are, and he knew that there needed to be some changes made, which led to the trade for Deion Jones that was made on Sunday. Not often you get a trade immediately after a game, but that just kind of illustrates the kind of defense that we're seeing, and it needs immediate fixing. So the Browns trade for Deion Jones and a 2024 7th-round pick from the Atlanta Falcons in exchange for a 2024 6th-round pick. So essentially just trading back in 2 drafts from now to get Deion Jones, which is essentially nothing for a guy with a lot of name value who's still pretty young. And there are some caveats as to why the Falcons were so willing to give up Deion Jones for almost nothing. But first I want to briefly go over kind of what's led up to this trade. It's very clear that Jacob Phillips is not ready to fill the void that was left by Anthony Walker's injury against Pittsburgh, which is a little disappointing because Jacob Phillips, when he subbed in for Anthony Walker against the Steelers, he did play very well. So you're thinking maybe if that continues for the next couple of weeks that Jacob Phillips can fill in and maybe not play as well as Anthony Walker, but be a serviceable replacement that the Browns could kind of rally around. But for the last 2 weeks, the linebacking core has looked not great, and it doesn't look like it's going to be turned around with answers in-house. Ergo, a trade for Deion Jones. Now we'll get to the caveat for Deion Jones. He has not played yet all season. He is still recovering, coming off of shoulder surgery. He's been on IR up until now. So hopefully he's getting ready to come back, because he didn't go on season-ending IR, just on IR in general. So it's clear that he is going to play at least at some point in this season, and hopefully relatively soon if Andrew Berry's making this trade now. But again, he hasn't played all season, so you do have to figure that rust will probably play a factor when he first gets in. And also, Atlanta did not want his cap hit for the next 2 seasons. I forget exactly what the number is, but he is one of the highest cap hits on the Falcons. The Falcons are kind of in a rebuilding mode, so if they can unload that and have some more cap space, and that would be nice for them. This deal might be kind of like similar how it ended with the Amari Cooper deal, where the Cowboys weren't ready to stomach his deal, so the Browns kind of gave up a late round pick for him. Hopefully for the Browns' sake that this ends in a similar way where Deion Jones comes in, plays very well, and the Browns gave up minimal draft capital because the team just didn't like his cap hit. But again, I like that Andrew Berry was at least willing to do something in an area of need, because we've been kind of looking at some of the holes in the defense this offseason, and the front office's kind of reluctancy to fill that with a veteran presence that might cost some extra, or making a big trade that might cost some more draft capital. But the cap hit might become an issue next season, because after this season, the Browns are going to have to do some cap management, cap finagling or whatever, because you have Denzel Ward's mega extension. David Njoku got a significant pay raise. You obviously have already big contracts like Myles Garrett. Obviously, the Deshaun Watson deal has a ton of cap with it. So the cap hit might become an issue, but again, that's something that's next year's issue and their problem. And that's honestly a problem that GMs of competitive teams kind of do every year. They kind of make some cap magic happen out of nowhere. They have space. We talk about the Saints and the Rams every year. They always seem to be over the cap, and then by some magic they're under it every year by somehow, some way. So good enough GMs are able to take cap situations that look impossible to get under, and they manage to work with it. Another glaring issue of need on this defense has been the defensive tackle. This is something that we knew would be a problem heading into the season. I remember doing the positional previews and the D-line talking about the defensive tackles, how there wasn't really much proven NFL talent at this position. And So they have signed Tyeler with two E's Davison, also from the Atlanta Falcons, to the practice squad. So it's not a guarantee that he gets called up and makes an immediate impact, but it is somebody new that the Browns are getting into their building. The Browns fans, and myself a little bit included in the offseason, clamored for signings of guys like Sheldon Richardson and maybe Ndamukong Suh, but there wasn't ever really any reports of serious conversations with the Browns with any of the bigger name defensive tackle free agents or trades or anything like that. So it's kind of something that the Browns fans knew would be an issue, and also something that the front office seems to be okay with being an issue with the defensive line. Just maybe they weren't expecting it to be this much of an issue. Maybe they're more hoping that it's going to be an issue because the defensive tackles are only okay, rather than it's an issue because the defensive tackles are looking just abjectly horrible as they have in the past 5 weeks. But Tyeler Davison isn't completely a nobody. He did start 11 games for the Falcons in 2021. I'm not too familiar with their defensive tackle situation last year, so maybe that also was a place where the Falcons didn't really have much of anything. So Tyeler Davison, just the guy who started, but it is nice to get somebody with some starting NFL experience somewhere else. It's certainly more than we can say for a lot of the defensive tackles that we have currently on the roster. The Browns just need a guy to not get constantly blown like 5 yards off the line of scrimmage on every play. I don't care if Tyeler Davison comes in and plays and he doesn't get a single sack. If he can just hold the line of scrimmage, I'm not even talking about getting penetration and getting a tackle for loss on a run play. If he can just hold the line of scrimmage and keep offensive linemen from getting to the second or third layer of the defense, then that will be a significant upgrade from what the Browns currently have now. Because the new additions in Taven Bryan, who I didn't know who he was before he signed here, and the Jags fans didn't seem to be too high on his chances in Cleveland. And he's been one of the starters, but hasn't really done much of anything of impact. Perrion Winfrey is a 4th-round pick, so I know people got way too high expectations for him because there's a reason he was picked in the 4th round. He's made some plays, but is obviously not a consistent playmaker in the NFL yet. Jordan Elliott has been okay, and he's been one of our better defensive tackles just because he's been okay and not just straight bad. And Tommy Togiai, I love you for being an OSU alum, but it's year 3 of a draft that, to be fair, we knew would be a project, but it's year 3 of his career, and he has gone nowhere. This project is still in pre-alpha. If Tommy Togiai is a project, it's gone absolutely nothing. But so if Tyeler Davison, again, Tyeler with 2 E's, if he can come in and do something, be some kind of improvement, and that's nice. But I think if this is all that the additions we're getting at defensive tackle is just guys who are signing to the practice squad and maybe they become something, that this position is going to continue to be a glaring weakness for this team. And again, I do think that the organization is, they're hoping that guys like Garrett and Clowney on the ends can kind of make up for that by causing disruption in the backfield by themselves, and the defensive tackles can just kind of do their best to hold their weight, which they haven't been doing. The already unsure state of the defensive tackles have been underperforming this season, and Garrett and Clowney just haven't been able to make up for that deficit yet. They've also not had great performances so far, but again, this is an issue that the front office seems to have accepted. We saw this with the Sheldon Richardson negotiations that went south, and he was so insulted by it that he went back to the Vikings for even less pay because this front office does not put much value into the interior of the defensive line. And to their, I guess I kind of agree that they don't necessarily need like a superstar or something that's going to make huge impact plays all the time, especially with their 2 defensive ends. But they do need like an NFL caliber players, and that's just something that we have not seen with the defensive tackles yet. And so hopefully this Deion Jones trade works out, and hopefully he slides right in and immediately provides that veteran presence and that boost that was there when Anthony Walker was there, but now that he's out is being sorely missed. But if Tyeler Davison is anything, that's cool. But I still don't see him being like this fix-all solution to the defensive tackle problem. And now all of a sudden, the interior defensive line is going to be feared by other teams across the league. So anyway, thank you all for watching. If you made it this far, please feel free to leave a like and a subscribe if you like the video and you'd like to see more like it. Let me know what you think about how Andrew Berry has done with these couple moves in the past week and if they are going to pan out for the Browns or not. Thank you all again for watching, and I will see you at the next one.